average how much it actually costs to build a house in the UK in 2025. Now, I just have to clarify before we go into these numbers that this I can't give out private information, obviously. So all of this is estimates based off the industry that we're working in right now, with inflation and taxes and everything like that. And also it includes cost of labor on site as well. So this is essentially a basic breakdown of what we're doing on site. So I'll overlay some clips of what's happening on site at the moment as I talk about it. So first of all, excavating ground to correct level. On site at the moment, it's like the elevations are insane. So we're doing so much excavation, which is around 79 grand. So I've put that as a total, I've averaged it out to 8 grand really per plot, per house on site. Compact type 1 sub base / blinding. So before we pour the foundation, which is concrete, we put down a thing called blinding, which is like a layer between the subsoil and the foundation. So this costs £1 grand to do, which you'll see in this episode and future episodes down the line when we're creating more houses. After this, then we put the insulation / formwork. So this site is different to a typical site. The detail of the foundation, we use something called build dye. I'm not going to go into the details of it, I just want to keep this quite basic and simple. But insulation / formwork is something, the formwork is what holds the concrete in place. So when we pour the concrete, you don't want to just pour it on the ground because it'll just go everywhere. So you want to encase it, and so when it dries and it hardens, it forms a certain shape, which is the formwork holding the concrete. So the formwork is 3.5 to 4.5 grand, which is surprisingly expensive. Put reinforcement / steel inside of the foundation, which basically strengthens it, which is quite expensive. Steel is quite expensive, so that's no surprise there. And then we obviously have to pour the concrete, which is 4.5 to 5.5 grand. So altogether, groundworks, on average, this is very, very broad numbers. We're talking 21 grand. The superstructure then, so we got steel frame in this house. So modern UK homes typically now having steel frame instead of brick and block because it's more efficient. So you're looking at 20 to 25 grand for the steel frame of a house, ground floor and first floor put together. Then we want bricks. We've got windows and doors, we've got stairs, we've got balustrades, and we've got canopies as well. All of this on total, 9, 18, 10 grand, 12. You're looking at 12, 13 grand altogether for all of this as well. Windows and bricks are surprisingly expensive, 9 grand. That's surprisingly expensive, but it will leave a nice finish, and as you'll see in future episode, it will really give a good finish on the houses that we're constructing at the moment. So the superstructure altogether comes up to around 42 grand, which is double the substructure, which is kind of surprising. So next to them we got the roof work. So we got the trusses, we have the felt, the batten and the tile. Now all of this together will add up to around 10 grand, which is surprising. And then internal works then, I've tried to go as basic as I can just to keep it a bit simple and a bit condensed down. But plasterboard obviously, which is the walls that goes on the metal frame. We've got the tape and joint finish. So when you put 2 walls of plasterboard either side, there's a little gap. So you want to tape and joint that gap for air tightness. Then we've got a mist coat on the wall. So when you paint the wall, you give it a mist coat before you give it another coat and another coat before you get your final coat. So that mist coat, I've included that as well. So the prices for this plasterboard, as you can see, is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So I've averaged that out as 6.1k, which is kind of mad. And then tape and joint finish, again, 3 to 3.5 grand. Like, that's a lot of money. Then we got mist coat walls, which is £1.5 grand for painting, which is like, wow. But remember, this is for the whole house, so when you average it out, kind of makes sense. Then we've got MVHR and ductwork and air source heat pumps. So these modern houses now, even social houses, absolutely insane how much that is. About 67.5 grand. So in these houses now, they have vents above the ceilings that basically push out like stale air and intake fresh air for sustainability and efficiency to keep like the house fresh and clean, and it's a lot of money as well. Sanitary ware then, so there's toilets, the taps, the bath, the shower, all that kind of stuff adds up to 2.5-ish grand. Then we got domestic services, hot and cold water. If you're a plumber at the moment, you are living life to the fullest. You are making a lot of money. Isn't that crazy? Domestic services for hot and cold water, 12 grand. What? What? So we've also got cabling as well, lighting, £450 to £700. PVs, so solar panels, 4.5 grand to 8 grand. We've got really fancy ones on our construction site. They're like commercial ones, so you would use these on supermarkets or restaurants. You wouldn't typically use them on domestic houses. This is why it's gone up to 8 grand. On domestic houses, they would be more like 4.5 grand, which averages out to 7.3k. Sprinkler installation then, that these modern houses have got sprinkler systems as well, which is kind of mind-blowing. Like, health and safety has just gone straight through the roof. Carpentry, so I've kind of based this off the sills, the skirting, the internal doors, architraves as well. You're looking at around a grand, which is fairly reasonable, I would say. Then we've got kitchens and worktop, 2.5 grand to 3.25. Then we've got the flooring. So before you do the flooring, you have what's called latex, and then you have a DPM, and then after that DPM, you put on the carpet, or you put on the vinyl. So we've got the latex and the DPM for the whole house, £450 to £950, and then we've got the floor finishes being vinyl or carpet, which is roughly around the same price. Then we've got ceramic tiling in the kitchens and the toilets. That's quite expensive. Tiler's quite expensive to get onto site as well, hence why it's going up to almost 2 grand just for tiling. And then insulation in the roof space then is £450 to £750. So altogether for internal works, you're looking at 53 grand. And then going into the external works then, you've got tarmac I'll start at the top. You've got GRP enclosures and meter boxes. Topsoil to the gardens then, we've got around 6.5 grand to 7 grand, which is quite expensive. Got the fencing and the gates for the garden coming to around 4 to 4.5 grand. We've got the paving in the garden, and then we've got the tarmac on the drives as well. You're looking at 15 grand for all the external works. So altogether, very, very basic broken down cost of how much it does cost to build a house in the UK in 2025. You're looking at 142 grand, and then I've just added an extra 10% for, let's say, the unforeseen things that I haven't mentioned and I haven't gone through. You're looking at 143 grand, which is quite mad. Like, kind of expected, but quite mad as well, considering how much houses are in the UK at the moment. Yeah, you're looking at 133 grand for a build-up of a 3-bedroom, 4-person house.